Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Welcome to the sixth session of the Quranic Arabic study group. We will, as usual, do a brief review of our last week's surah, which was Surah An-Nasr, chapter 110 of the Quran. And today, instead of covering chapter 109, I thought it might be perhaps a bit late, but never too late to do Surah Al-Fatiha, which is the first chapter, and what we read in our prayers in every rakat. So we'll just cover Surah Al-Fatiha today, and then next week, inshallah, we will continue from Surah 109, working backwards of the chapters, the last chapters of the Quran. So brief revision. We had Surah An-Nasr last week. I'll just read that out. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Iza ja'a nasrullahi wal fath. When the help of Allah comes and the victory. وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. And you see the people entering into the religion of Allah in multitudes. وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ. Then glorify with the praises of your Lord and ask His forgiveness. إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Indeed, He is oft returning. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. And some of the words that we covered last week, beginning with Ja, Jim, Ya, Hamza. And we also spoke about the Wiktionary, so let me just briefly recap that. So this is a Wiktionary which has, an etymology of all the, I think most of the Arabic words are here. And the nice thing about this was that you can also see a conjugation of all the words. So for example, this is a word which is an irregular verb. It has two vowels, alif and hamza. And so it's a little difficult to, ya and hamza. It's a little difficult to exactly figure out what are the different conjugations. But here, if you simply click on this portion, it will show you all the different forms of this particular root. The masdar. Yes. Sorry.
I tried to open this link. It was not somehow.
Okay.
How you have to write Ja over there?
Okay, so that's the difficult part. Even I have a little difficulty in navigating this particular site because it comprises of English and Arabic letters. And unless you have the Arabic letters, Arabic keyboard with you, which is not very difficult to install, by the way. And maybe later I can show you how it's done.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's a little difficult to navigate. And I'm also having a little trouble in finding words. But one way is that, you just go onto Google and you type something like Wiktionary, and you type the word in English, and you try to see if you can find it. That's how I found this word. But I think I'll figure out a better way of navigating the site, and I'll try to help you, try to help us all next time.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is quite useful, and we may once in a while come back to this. So the words that we covered last time were Jim, Ya, Hamza, Ja'a, and then we looked at Nasara, Fataha, Ra'a, then Noon, Waw, Sin, Nas, Dakhala, to enter, and Deen, Dal, Ya, Noon, and Fa, Waw, Jim, Afaja, and Sin, Ba, Ha, Sabbaha, as in glorify, and then Ha, Mim, Dal, Hamida, or to praise.
Fataha is float also, no?
Fataha, I think, yes, it is also float. Where did we, Fataha, is, if you look at this, I think Fataha is the verb itself, may not mean to float, but
नहीं, sabaha, sabaha.
okay, sorry.
Hmm.
Sabaha. So if you, yes, so you can see that it does show floating. So that here, in terms of the verb, it is the verb in the first verb form, yasbah. That implies floating. Yasbahu.
But this is form one is sabaha, form one it is floating, and form two glorify.
Um, so yeah, I'll have to check this out, because normally the verb one form comprises is normally 3 letters. But here, of course, it seems to be given in terms of the mudari, yasbahu. Perhaps because in form 1, it is not occurring as the mazi form. But I'm not, can you repeat your question again, Mustaq Sahab?
I was just telling you that this form one is to float, and form two form two means glorify.
Yes, right. So, so a lot of times there is a relationship between the different forms, but and there may be some loose relationships in some words, and in some cases, it
Multiple
completely
meanings.
yeah, it completely jumps to a different meaning. So here we can see that it's not directly connected. The verb, the form 1 and form 2, not directly connected. You're right. So going forward, then Hamida and Ghafara, Ghain, Fara, to ask for forgiveness, and Pa, Waw, Ba, of returning, Taba. And this was the end of the list that we covered last time. I just wanted to show you that there is a PDF available which lists down the 100 most common verbs in the Quran. These are not all the words, but these are verbs. And if you want, I can share that. That's also easily searchable on the internet. And I've just listed over here the top 10 most common verbs. And I was just looking at which ones have we covered so far. And I found that we've already covered about half of them. Qala, Kana, Alima, some of these we'll cover today, inshallah. Ja'a we've covered, and Ra'a we covered last time. So let's go forward and cover today's surah. And as it begins with the Quran, it's at the beginning of the Quran, it also covers the first ayat, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So let's take a look at the first ayat as well. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, and some of the words are also common with Surah Fatiha. So if you look at the first word, ism, it simply means the name. And the root is Seen, Meme, and Waw. Seen, Meme, Waw, and occurs about 400 times, 381 times in the Quran. And also it has, interestingly, quite different meanings as well. So if you look at ism, it means name, as it is used over here. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah. Or as in Surah Baqarah, وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. When Allah Ta'ala taught Hazrat Adam the names of everything. So, but it also is used as sama, which is another noun, which is derived from the same root. And this means, of course, the sky, or the skies, or the heavens. And that's, of course, used quite often in the Quran, Asma and Sama and Ard. And you also see other versions of these, which we'll cover hopefully in the future. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ism is of course a noun. Then Allah we've already covered in the past. Let's still take a look at Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Both of these have the same root letters, which are Ra, Ha, and Mim. Rahima is the basic verb. Rahima yarhamu. Rahima and yarhamu is the Mudari form, which basically means to have mercy, or he was merciful in the third person. So here it's being used as Ar-Rahim as a noun because it has the letters Alif Lam, of course. And now when you have Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, a lot of times these are translated in different ways. And here you can see that that the way it's being translated is the most gracious and the most merciful. And it sometimes is a little confusing. What's the exact difference between Rahman and Rahim? They both seem to be saying the same thing. But if you recall the way we studied this in Arif Saab's course, is that when you have something, yeah, I think maybe in Islamabad,
Islamabad, yes.
Right. Here we still have another half an hour. So if you look at the words Rahman and Rahim, then the Rahim is on a certain, as they call, wazn, and Rahim and anything which is on this particular pattern generally means repeatedly. I hope, does anybody recall this when we learned this? Something which is on this form, Rahman, means the most. But Rahim, if you have this pattern Rahim, it means repetitive. There's the notion of repetition. Okay, so when we say that Allah Ta'ala is Ar-Rahim, it means he's repeatedly merciful, or he's continuously merciful. Okay, so that has a notion of continuity in time. And of course, it's used in different ways as well. There are 9 derived forms of the word, which we'll hopefully cover as we go forward. So that was the 2 words, Rahman and Rahim, the most gracious, and perhaps more appropriate would be the repeatedly merciful. And then we start with Surah Fatiha. So let me go through Surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. And now the translation. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praises and thanks to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful. Maliki Yawmiddin, the master of the day of judgment. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Guide us to the path, the straight path. Siratal lazina an'amta alayhim. The path of those you have bestowed your favors on. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. And not of those who earned your wrath on themselves, and not of those who go astray. Ameen. So, let's look at the individual words. Alhamd is the first word here, and we've actually come across this earlier as well in Surah An-Nas, in Surah An-Nasr. فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. And here again, it also has a similar meaning. It simply means praise. Alhamd, all praise. Lahi Rabbil Alameen. Let's look at the word Alameen in more detail. So the root letters are Ain, Lam, and Mim. And Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise to our Rabb, who is the Lord of the universe. So Alameen over here is being used as a noun, but it's a very common root letter in the Quran and has 14, actually a very large number of derived forms. So we're already familiar with something like Alima, Alima, and Ya'lamu, Ya'lamu, which is basically knowledge, or Alima was he knows. And then there is verb to, which allama, which as generally when you look at the second form, it means to do something with somebody else. So allama means to teach, and alima means to know. And then other forms as well. So here it is the noun form, which is alameen. And here it means it's actually a plural, so it means all the worlds. And it can be translated as the universe. Okay, so going forward, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, this of course we've already covered in the first ayah, Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Malik, which is also something which we, I believe, came across earlier. And here it simply is being used as an active participle. If you recall, we came across this in Surah Nas, where it was used as Malik and Nas. So there it was Malik, which was basically meaning the king, and used as a noun. But here it's Malik. So Malik is also a noun, but it implies the active participle, the one who is. So here Malik is interpreted as the master, okay, as opposed to the king. So Maliki Yawmiddin, the master of the day of judgment. Maliki Yawmiddin. Yom, let's take a look at the word Yom. So the root letters are Ya, Waw, and Mim. And here it's used as a noun. And of course, actually in all of these cases, it is used as a noun, occurring 405 times in the Quran. And you can see it's used in different ways in the Quran, in Surah Baqarah as وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَا هُمْ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ in the day. Now, it's also used slightly differently in terms of time. So here, for example, in Surah 101, it's used as يَوْمَ يَكُونُ النَّاسُ كَالْفِرَاشِ الْمَبْثُوثِ. So here it is used as the day Yawma Yakunu, as the day when something happens. And I noticed that when it's used as Yawmuddin, it has a specific meaning, which is basically the day of judgment. So it's essentially the same meaning, day, but in slight different connotations. Sometimes as an indication of time, and at other times simply as the basic noun form. So Maliki Yawmiddin. Let's take a look at the word din. and the root letters are Dal, Ya, and Nun. And here it's used as meaning judgment, Yawmuddin. Okay. And it also has different verb forms such as Yadinu and other more complicated forms, which we'll study on hopefully later, inshallah. Going forward, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. So let's take a look at na'budu. Iyyaka is a pronoun which simply means you alone. Okay, Iyyaka, and perhaps we've studied this before as well. Iyyaka na'budu. So if you look at the root letters of na'budu, it is Ain, Ba, and Dal. And the basic verb form is abada, and I believe it is abada and ya'budu as the Madi form. So here, Iyyaka na'budu is being used as a Mudari form over here. Na'budu, you have Ya being replaced with a Noon over here to imply we, as opposed to Ya'budu, which would imply third person they. So Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Only you we worship. Iyyaka na'budu. And other forms of this verb are verb 2, which is abada, abad. And you can also see other words such as ibadat, which we are familiar with. And abid also as an active participle, one who worships. And hopefully as we come across these words, we'll look at these again. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And you alone, we ask for help. So let's take a look at the word nasta'in. The root letters are Ain, Waw, and Nun. Okay. And the basic form is only used as a form for verb, ahana. Okay. So if you recall, the form for verbs have an alif as well in it. And we can revise this at some point. But here it's being used as a form 10. And if you recall, we've come across form 10 before as well. Here it is used as asta'inu or iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. But we've also come across istighfar, for example, and there's a notion of asking. So every time you have form 10, there is the seen letter which comes in, and there is a notion of asking. Okay. So, so here the basic form is to ask for help. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And we might recognize some other words as well, such as ta'awun, which means to cooperate, and other words as well, which we can look at later on. So, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Moving forward, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. So ihdina is guide us. And if you look at the root letters of this word, it is ha, dal, and ya. Okay. And again, quite a common verb and noun in the Quran, occurring 316 times and in 12 derived forms. Okay. So the basic form is hada, and if I just remember correctly, it is hada yahda, or is it hada yahdi, I think. I could be wrong over here. So that's the mudari form and the mazi form. And that simply means that to to guide, or he was guided. And here it is being used as a basic form 1 to guide. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. And if you look at some of the other forms that maybe we can recognize some of these other forms, Hudan is also used. Let's see if it is somewhere here. Yes, Hudan is often used. And Ahda is also used. So these are different forms.
Can I just ask about the alif before the he?
Yeah.
Can you remind me about that? What is the function of the alif?
Hold on, I think current to the wrong page. So so here it's being used as Ihdina Siratal Mustaqim. And let me try to think. That's a good question, and I'm trying to recollect my thoughts as well. In the word Ihdina, what is the role of alif? The basic word is Hada and Yahdi, and it is Ihdina. So let's take a look at the details of this. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And this is ayat number 5, Ihdina. So Ihdina is a second person imperative verb. Okay, so this is guide us. So this is basically the command form. Okay, that confused me as well. So so if you want to form the command form, what's the technique? You take the mudare and then you replace the ya with an alif. Okay, so it becomes ihdi. Okay, now if you are trying to tell somebody to guide, so we actually we're asking Allah Ta'ala to guide us. So if you recall, when you are speaking to Allah Ta'ala, your imperative, your command is actually a request, right? I mean, you don't request somebody who's superior to you. You don't command somebody who's superior to you. You simply request. So ihdi is the imperative form where we are requesting Allah Ta'ala to guide us. And whenever you convert a verb into an imperative form or a command form, you start by adding alif. Okay, so sorry. Yes, you replace ya with alif. So and then the na, of course, implies that you're asking to guide us. Okay, so if you were simply saying guide him, you would probably say ihdihu. And if you're saying guide me, it would probably be ihdi. Okay, but I could be wrong in those. That's my guess. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you. And it reminds me of the word ijlis, which is a command to sit down.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So jalasa yajlisu, and then ijlis, which means sit. Right. So going back, Ihdina siratal mustaqim. So let's look at the word sirat. So the root letters are swad, ra, and ta. And this is used 45 times in the Quran as simply the noun. So not too many different formats of this word. And it simply means the path. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, the path, which is straight. Also used, for example, In the next verse, Sirat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. So, Sirat al-Mustaqim. And if you look at the word Mustaqim, now this is the root letters are Qaf, Waw, and Mim. And again, it is it's not exactly form 10. It's still it's being used here as an adjective. So if you look at no, sorry, it is form 10, and it is the active participle. Okay. So let's look at the first verb. So if you, and this is quite frequently, by the way, 660 times in 22 derived forms, one of the very common words in the Quran. And it has a whole range of meanings. So as a form 1 verb, qama yaqumu. So qama yaqumu. And that simply means he stood, okay, or he will stand. And if you want to convert yaqumu, for example, into the imperative, it would seem to be aqumu, right? But again, because it has, it's an irregular verb which has a waw in it, instead of aqumu, it would simply become kum. So you write that as kum. So if you want to command somebody to stand, in the as you said, ijlis means to sit, but if you want to say stand, you would say kum. So, for example, in Surah 74, it says kum fa'anzir, right? Or it also used as mudari form in Surah 78, where it is said, Yawma yakumu ruhu al-malaikatu saffan. Yawma yakumu. The day when the ruh will stand, and all the malaika will stand in rows. And we have in Surah 83, it's used Yawma yakumu nasu li rabbil alameen, the day when mankind will stand in front of the Rabbil Alameen. So that
I think there's also kum al-layl, stand at night.
Yes, stand in the night. Yes. So so the basic form 1 is quite frequently used, 33 times, and then form 4 is, again, form 4 has alif in it, and akama is the word. That's form 4, and then form 10 is istaqamu. And istaqamu, I think, has again the meaning of making a request. And here, if you go down to how it's being used right now, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. So here, mustaqim is being used as the active participle, as the straight. So the straight path. And as we go forward, maybe we'll come back again to this word, which has a very rich set of meanings. So, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. And again, here this is being used as an adjective, as we saw here. That if we recall in Arabic, now, and there's no such thing separately as an adjective. Both of these are considered as nouns. And it's simply a noun which is describing another noun. So, as-sirat al-mustaqim simply means the straight path. And if you remember, whenever you have an adjective, these two have to match in form. So if you're talking about the path and you're trying to describe the path, then the two forms have to be the same. In other words, there's an al over here, there's going to be an al here as well. If it is not a tanween, it will not be a tanween over here as well. So the case has to be the same. For example, here this is a sirat, ihdina sirata. So this is in nasab form. It is in nasab form, so this is also in nasab form with a fatah at the end, not the dhamma or a kasra. So the case has to match whether it's a proper noun, that has to match, proper or common, and the gender has to match. So if this is, it is a masculine, then this also has to be in the masculine form. And what is the last one? There was one more thing which I can't recollect right now, but there are 4 things which have to match whenever you have an adjective. So going forward, Sirat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. And again, we've already covered the word Sirat. Al-Lazina is, we've come across this very frequently, but just to go cover it once again, it simply means the one or those. So Al-Lazina is in plural form, so it means those. But if it is in Al-Lazi, it would be the singular. Al-Lazi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, the one who. And Sirat al-Lazina, it means the path of those. And the female form of this is Allati, by the way. So that would be Allati. Not sure if that, I'm sure that has also occurred in the Quran. Surat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. Let's look at the word an'amta. The root letters are Nun, Ain, Mim. And the basic verb form 1 is Naima. Naima, and Yanhamu. This is my guess, but I could be mistaken over here. Naima, Yanhamu is my guess. And second, form 2 is Nahama. Okay. Form 4 would be Anama. So here it's being used as a form 4. And in form 4, you automatically already have an alif at the beginning. So An'amta is the form 4, which is basically An'ama. And this would mean, An'ama would mean he bestowed favor. And if I want to say that you bestowed favor, then I would add a ta. Okay, I hope we remember this is how it's done for the Mudari form. So this is a Mudari form. So Surat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. So the path of those on whom you bestowed your favor. Okay, so this is you have bestowed favor. So an'amta would be you bestowed. If it was a female, it would be an'amti. If it was I bestowed, as over here, it would become an'amtu. Okay. Uskuru ni'mati yallati an'amtu alaykum wa awfu bi'ahdi. So you can see that now here it is I bestowed, and so on. And we can see other forms of this word also occurring. So Surat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. Alayhim means, of course, on them. Ghair al-maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ghair is a noun and simply means not. So you can see that it is used different way a lot of times in the Quran, 154 times. The root letters are Ghain, Ya, and Ra. And here, for example, it's being used as Surat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim ghair al-maghdub, and not of. And in different parts of the Quran, you can see it's being used as Al kafirina ghairu yasir, on the kafirun, which are not. And إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونٍ. So you can see how it's being used in different forms. غَيْرُ الْمَغْضُوب. Maghdub again, a noun. Let's take a look at this. So the root letters are Ghain, Dad, Tod, and Ba. And the basic form one of the verb is Ghadiba. Ghadiba. And the Mudari would be something like Ya. I'll have to check exactly the form of this, whether it's Yaghdabu or Yaghdibu or Yaghdubu. I'm not too familiar with this. And here it's being used as a passive participle. Okay. Now, passive participle as opposed to active participle. Hope we recall active participle is one who does, and passive participle is one on whom the work is being done. So here it's Siratul Lazina An'amta Alayhim Ghairil Maghdubi Alayhim. So not on those who earned your wrath. Okay, so these are the people on whom the wrath is being done. That's why it is a passive participle. Maghdub. Siratul Lazina An'amta Alayhim Ghairil Maghdubi Alayhim. And Walad Dwalin. Finally, the last word of this surah, Dwalin. And this is again a noun. If you look at the root letters, it is Adad, Lam, Lam, Dalla. And if you look at, if you recall, the basic form is Dalla, and I believe it's Yadullu is the basic Mudari, Dalla Yadullu, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have different forms, Adalla, which is form 4, and then derived nouns from it. Dalla, Dalal is a noun form, and here it's the active parts of the basic noun, which is being used over here. So you have Dalala as well as a noun, but here I believe it's been used as the basic noun form Dalla. Tubi alayhim waladdu'alin. And Dalla means to those who go astray. And Dalla would simply mean he went astray, and he is or will go astray. So those were the words that we covered in this surah. And let me just do a recap of the entire surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise and thanks to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful. Maliki Yawmiddin, the master of the day of judgment. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. You alone we worship and you alone we ask for help. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Guide us to the path, the straight path. Siratal lazina an'amta alayhim. The path of those you have bestowed your favors on. Ghairil maghdubi alayhim waladdu'alin. Not of those who earned your wrath on themselves, and not of those who go astray. Ameen. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.